Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of RE182, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Humans Train Them Young, written by AntiMoneySquandering. I'd never seen a human before. Before I agreed to this agreement, I'd done some research, of course. Looked up the data files, the bioprints we had in the galactic libraries. There wasn't a great deal. Something I attributed to their incredibly new induction into the Galactic Council. Meeting them now, I could see I was wrong. They were just really dull. Bipedal mammalian aliens, they were very drab to look at, very bland. I was surrounded by AI. I quickly looked up the collective noun for them, and even that was boring. A group of humans, and the most exciting color was one with a red sheen to the soft spines on its head. My own spine stood proud and extended. A vivid violet that had a number of creatures gathered around me, making odd, breathy noises that my translator couldn't fathom. One particularly brave mammal stretched out a finger as if to touch one, and I allowed my spines to lie flat, then quickly extend once more, causing them to squeal and run off. A larger human approached me, standing a good few feet above me. I looked up, craning my eye stalks, and returned his respectful blink greeting. At least they had manners. "Welcome, Diplomat Ben Lan. I must confess, we were surprised to see someone wished to observe us here, but alas, we're very new to the ways of the galactic community. As you can see, even just having a spin talk here is very exciting." I let my spines lift as the human's mumbling words were translated, and shook myself lest I allowed flattery to get in the way of the mission. "Thank you for facilitating this. I don't want to get in your way, so I simply proceed and I will observe." The human nodded. Something I had learnt was akin to rattling your spines, and clapped its forelimbs loudly, summoning the horde of smaller mammals. They jostled in position in front of him, and I could not help but notice their desperate sizes. The one who had spoken to me towered over them. The others were not much larger than myself. Perhaps 2 eye stalks difference. Sexual dimorphism, I pondered. Typing my query into my console, I held. My spines raised slightly in surprise as it informed me that the crowd of humans in front were actually prepubescent, not yet at their full adult form. I hastily added this information to my notes. Titled Human VR Military Training. It seemed bizarre to me that this species would have their young begin military training at such an age. The humans ran off to a wall in the corner that housed various technological implements. As they did so, the adult human rejoined me, baring its teeth in what was meant to be a friendly gesture. I shrugged off my discomfort. It was hard for a predator species to forget that practice. "These humans, they are your younglings," I began, waiting for my translator to turn my melodic squeaks and sniffles into that horrible bass mash of sound the humans used. "Does that not affect them later in life?" The human made a loud staccato sound that caused my spines to raise in surprise. They kept their smile on their face, however, so I assumed it to be benign. "Oh, they're all 10 years or older. We don't allow anyone younger to partake here. And their parents have all agreed. They grow up faster and faster these days. You have to keep up with them." I rattled my spines and added it to my notes. According to the database, this would put the humans at a very developmental period indeed. I bared my gums and frowned as I typed this last comment. Humans are growing at an exceptional rate. Further research required. The younglings had returned to the center of the room, an area covered by a soft, plump substance. They all held weapons in their hands, crude imitations of human plasma weaponry that we had seen at their induction. The humans pointed them at each other and pretended to fire, making the same noise an adult did as their comrades feigned pain or death. To my surprise, the adult mimicked them, the noise emanating from him, barred Eva, and finally my translator recorded it as an expression of joy. I bared my gums once more. They seemed to find happiness in imagined cruelty/warfare, even at a young age. The adult moved among the younglings, positioning them across the floor in some sort of pattern. Once satisfied, he stepped back, and rounded headsets descended from the low ceiling. The humans eagerly clipped these onto their heads, the black blending in with the mesh jumpsuits they wore. The adult led me off to another room filled with monitors. So the kids are ready to go. Their suits pick up on their emotions, and for the full virtual reality experience, a small shock is administered at touch. More if they're shot. A shock, I said, typing furiously on my pad. The human shook its soft head spines. It's nothing really, more to add to the realism. It won't hurt. We do have games for all the players where it can give you quite the punch. Increasing levels of training difficulty, with added pain inducers at higher levels. The human turned and gestured to the monitors with its 5 appendaged limb, all of which were black currently. So basically, we'll be able to see what they see through these. Through their eyes, as it were. Ideally, I'd like to have you actually in there, in the game, but given the different physiology, it's just not feasible. Their back was still to me, so they did not see my spine split in panic at the suggestion that I would take part in this military exercise. I managed to flatten them and lower my eye stalks before the human turned around. So they selected a popular level here, Escape from Dead Town. It's a more supernatural theme featuring a human staple, zombies. I typed this down in my pad, frowning at the last word uttered as it failed to completely translate. Given context, I assumed it was a cultural creation of the species. I raised my eye stalks as the screen flickered into life, and I saw through the snow-stalked eyes of the younglings. They were in what appeared to be a human settlement, one not too different from where I currently resided. That meant that in true human fashion, the buildings were mainly a dull grey or brown, the odd-textured ground in the blackish grey. There appeared to be something wrong, however, as there were no signs of life other than other younglings, all dressed in something approaching military fatigues. I felt my unease rise. A sudden burst of noise drew my attention, and I glanced at the lower monitor, where a youngling was firing their weapon wildly. They seemed to hit their target, a humanoid figure that dropped to the floor. The younglings stopped and made their odd laughing sound when another one yelled over from their cover behind an abandoned vehicle covered in rust.
Head! You need to aim for the head.
I was surprised to hear ones this young be so well versed in combat already that they would be yelling tips and advice to their comrades. The one who had yelled jumped out of their cover and ran to the other, who had turned their own gun back on the fallen enemy. I felt my spines lengthen to their maximum, and a high-pitched squeal escaped me unbidden as the screen was suddenly filled with a rising humanoid I thought deceased. It appeared human, albeit one suffering from a horrific wasting disease, its skin sloughing off like a draelad's scales in their full maturity. The younglings fired together, and the sickened head exploded in a wave of viscera and gore, a deep red and black that splashed over the screen. I dropped my pad and held my paws to my mouth as I struggled to keep my feet down. The younglings on the screen slapped their appendages together and laughed again, as the other monitor filled with more gunfire and violent images of dismembered bodies. I failed in my task. Half-digested serotonin grubs pouring on the floor. The human turned at this and held its own hands to its mouth at the sight of me retching the remnants of my gut. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You may have a reaction to our screens." He stepped past me and opened the door, which I hastily escaped through, into a cool darkness. I licked down my chest and face, cleaning myself as best I could. The human returned, handing me my discarded tablet. "Please stay out here for as long as you need. The birthday party will be over before too long." End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Dragzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.